Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, left behind insights that often cut deeper than what mainstream psychology was willing to explore. One of his most haunting observations, drawn from his private notes and clinical experiences, concerned empaths, those who possess extraordinary emotional sensitivity. Jung noticed a disturbing pattern. Empaths were not just coincidentally surrounded by difficult people. They were actively being hunted by what he referred to as unconscious forces, individuals who survive by feeding on the energy, compassion, and light of sensitive souls. This video explores Jung's final warning to empaths: they're feeding on your light. We'll look at how this draining process unfolds, why empaths are especially vulnerable, the archetypes behind the phenomenon, and most importantly, how sensitive individuals can transform from prey into sovereign beings who use their gifts consciously. The hidden predators among us. Jung's research suggested that not all predators are obvious. Many are disguised as deeply wounded, vulnerable, or even charming individuals. On the surface, they appear to crave healing or understanding. Yet beneath that facade lies a disturbing survival mechanism. They unconsciously feed on the emotional and spiritual energy of empaths. The terrifying aspect of this process is its invisibility. Unlike overt abuse, the energy transfer happens subtly. It hides under emotional manipulation, masked as intimacy, trauma bonds mistaken for love, and guilt reframed as devotion. The empath, eager to help, does not realize that their very compassion is being weaponized against them. How empaths become targets. Empaths are not born fragile. They are forged in the crucible of childhood trauma. In chaotic households, survival often depended on a child's ability to anticipate moods, sense danger before it struck, and absorb unspoken emotions. This hyper-awareness, once protective, later becomes a beacon for energy parasites in adulthood. Modern neuroscience supports this. Dr. Judith Orloff and others have confirmed that empaths' mirror neurons fire more intensely than those of average people. Their brains literally absorb the emotions of others, often to the point of confusing them with their own. While this creates a profound ability for connection, it also leaves empaths exposed to those who strategically manipulate this sensitivity. Jung observed that some people learn, consciously or unconsciously, to trigger empathy as a tool. They sense vulnerability in others, play out stories of pain, and draw energy from compassionate responses. For the empath, the connection feels deep and meaningful. For the parasite, it is a lifeline of supply. The 4 stages of energy feeding. Jung's clinical notes outline the step-by-step pattern through which energy parasites exploit empaths. These stages are remarkably consistent across relationships. 1. Light recognition. Parasites can sense an empath's emotional availability almost immediately. Narcissistic or wounded personalities have an uncanny radar for people who give more than they take. Empaths shine like a flame that moths cannot resist. 2nd, wound display. Instead of approaching with demands, the parasite presents pain. They share trauma stories, deep wounds, or struggles that evoke compassion. This mirrors the empath's depth, but conceals their emptiness. Jung noted that parasites become who you need them to be, playing roles that hook your heart. 3rd, empathy activation. Once compassion is engaged, the extraction begins. Crises multiply, emotional labor becomes one-sided, and trauma dumping replaces reciprocity. Empaths mistake being needed for being loved, pouring themselves out in the belief that they are special healers. 4. Depletion. Normalization. The most insidious stage. The empath is convinced that exhaustion equals devotion. Being drained is reframed as proof of deep connection. Emotional overwhelm becomes spiritualized as sensitivity. The empath internalizes depletion as normal. Through this cycle, the empath's identity is twisted. They are no longer a giver by choice, but a host by compulsion. Archetypal shadows. Wounded healer and shadow devourer. Jung's genius was his ability to see personal dysfunction as part of universal archetypes. He recognized that this predator-prey dynamic between empaths and parasites was not just interpersonal, it was archetypal. The wounded healer, the empath, born from trauma, carrying an unconscious need to fix others, and addicted to being needed. The shadow devourer, the parasite, A figure who has cut themselves off from genuine emotion and instead survives by stealing energy from others. This explains why empaths often stay in draining relationships despite suffering. Their shadow isn't cruelty, it's the compulsive need to heal others, which masks a terror of abandonment. Parasites, meanwhile, are not evil masterminds. They are unconscious beings driven by the hunger of their own shadow, seeking in others what they refuse to cultivate within themselves. The psychological vampire effect. Jung compared this to a psychological vampire effect. The more light you give, the more the parasite demands. The more you attempt to heal them, the more wounded they become. They cannot be satisfied because the energy they consume does not integrate. It disappears into a void created by disowned emotions and severed interconnection. It is like trying to feed someone who has no digestive system. They can keep eating, but never feel nourished. Empaths, unable to accept this reality, often double down, pouring even more of themselves into the relationship. But the result is only greater depletion. Everyday examples of energy feeding. Jung's observations are not abstract. They show up in everyday life. Consider these scenarios. 1. The romantic parasite. A partner who shares deep trauma and appears spiritually sensitive, but constantly demands emotional rescue. The empath feels chosen, but ends up exhausted. When boundaries are set, accusations of coldness or betrayal surface. 2. The devouring parent. A mother or father who uses guilt, emotional crises, or threats to keep their child tethered. The child, even as an adult, feels responsible for their parent's well-being, unable to separate love from exhaustion. 3. The workplace vampire. A colleague who monopolizes meetings with personal drama, constantly leans on others for support, and reframes dysfunction as sensitivity. The empathic coworker feels obligated, but their productivity and peace of mind deteriorate. In all cases, the empath's light becomes the fuel that sustains another's shadow. The war for the soul. Jung believed that when empaths begin to recognize these patterns, they enter a battle not just for healthier relationships, but for their very essence. He called it the war for the soul. Energy parasites, sensing their host awakening, often escalate their tactics, creating bigger crises, threatening self-harm, or accusing the empath of selfishness. This escalation is not about love, it is about maintaining access to supply. Parasites do not fear losing you, they fear losing your energy. Recognizing this distinction is crucial for empaths seeking freedom. Jung's light method, tools for empathic sovereignty. Jung did not leave empaths without solutions. He emphasized practices that can transform vulnerability into sovereignty. 1. Learn to discern energy signatures. Empaths already feel how people affect their system. With healthy individuals, they feel energized, peaceful, or inspired. With parasites, they feel drained, anxious, or foggy. Trusting these bodily cues is the first step. 2. Question hidden motivations. Ask yourself, why do I need to be needed? Often, rescuing others is a way to avoid our own healing. By bringing these unconscious drives to light, we reduce their grip. 3. Guard your sacred energy. Jung stressed that protecting energy is not selfish. It is spiritual responsibility. Boundaries are acts of self-respect, not cruelty. 4. Transform trauma into wisdom. The empath's gift comes from surviving chaos. Integrating rather than denying, this origin allows sensitivity to be used consciously instead of compulsively. The 3 levels of empath development. Jung identified a developmental path for empaths, showing how they can progress towards sovereignty. 1. The unconscious empath. Feels everything without understanding. Constantly drained, blames themselves, and confuses exhaustion with love. 2. The intentional empath. Learns basic protection techniques, begins setting boundaries but still struggles with guilt, and sometimes slips back into old patterns. 3. The sovereign empath. Fully owns their sensitivity as strength, uses discernment, not compulsion, willing to disappoint others in order to remain true to themselves. The journey is difficult, requiring courage to risk being disliked, losing, draining relationships, and standing alone if necessary. Yet it is the only path to authentic power, the courage to disappoint. One of Jung's most profound insights was that growth requires the courage to disappoint. Parasites will resist when you withdraw your energy. They may accuse you of being cold, selfish, or uncaring, but this is not about your worth. It is about their addiction. True transformation happens when empaths accept that disappointing others is not betrayal, but self-preservation. It is the only way to protect their light and redirect it toward genuine growth. Avoiding the trap of walls. Jung's final warning included a caution. In the process of protecting yourself, do not build walls so high that you cut off genuine connection. The goal is not emotional unavailability, but conscious compassion. Discerning who deserves your energy is different from refusing to share it altogether. Walls lead to cynicism and isolation. Boundaries lead to clarity and empowerment. From prey to sovereign. Ultimately, Jung's message was one of empowerment. Your sensitivity is not a curse. It is a superpower when wielded consciously. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung wrote, is to become who you truly are. For empaths, that means integrating your wounds, owning your gifts, and refusing to let them be consumed. When you protect your light, you not only safeguard yourself, you become a catalyst for others. You demonstrate what it means to engage in conscious connection, where love energizes rather than depletes, where presence matters more than sacrifice, and where compassion coexists with self-respect. Conclusion. Jung's promise. Carl Jung's final warning was stark. They're feeding on your light. But his promise was even greater. You have the power to stop them. Empaths are waking up to this truth. By recognizing patterns of parasitism, setting boundaries, and embracing individuation, they can transform their sensitivity into sovereignty. The world doesn't need more drained caretakers. It needs sovereign empaths, individuals who shine their light not to be consumed, but to illuminate paths toward wholeness for themselves and others. Your light is not meant to be anyone's survival fuel. It is meant to guide your journey toward becoming fully, unapologetically who you are.